The fluorescent lights of Memorial Heights Hospital hummed softly as Olivia Carter checked her watch for the third time in 10 minutes. 3 in the morning, and her shift still had 4 hours to go. Her feet ached in the comfortable but worn sneakers she'd bought on clearance 6 months ago. The same shoes that had walked countless miles through these sterile corridors, carrying her through endless night shifts that paid just enough to keep her and Emma afloat. Olivia pressed her fingers against her tired eyes and thought about her daughter sleeping peacefully at her mother's house. Emma would wake up in a few hours excited about her upcoming school field trip. A trip that cost $40 Olivia didn't quite have yet, but she would find a way. She always did. At 30 years old, Olivia had learned to survive on determination and coffee. Her ex-boyfriend had left when she was 5 months pregnant, claiming he wasn't ready for fatherhood. Ready or not, Olivia had become both mother and father to Emma. Working double shifts and sacrificing everything to give her daughter a stable life, the nursing job at Memorial Heights was demanding, but it offered decent health insurance and enough flexibility to attend Emma's school events when possible. Tonight had been relatively quiet. A few patients needed medication. One elderly man required assistance to the bathroom. A teenager with a broken arm needed comfort after a nightmare. Routine work that Olivia handled with practiced efficiency and genuine care. She'd just finished updating patient charts when her supervisor approached with an unusual request. Olivia, we need someone to check the executive parking garage. Security called about a possible medical emergency, but they're dealing with a situation in the emergency room. You're the only nurse available who's qualified for field response. Olivia grabbed the emergency medical bag and headed toward the elevators. The executive parking garage was technically outside her usual duties, reserved for the hospital's wealthiest donors and board members. She'd never actually been there, but an emergency was an emergency. The garage was dimly lit and eerily quiet. Olivia's footsteps echoed against concrete as she walked between rows of expensive cars. Mercedes, BMW, Tesla, vehicles that cost more than she'd earned in 5 years. She was about to call security for better directions when she heard it. A low groan coming from behind a silver Bentley. Olivia rushed forward and found him. A man in an expensive charcoal suit lay crumpled against the car door, his body twisted at an awkward angle. Even in distress, he was striking. Dark hair slightly graying at the temples, strong jawline, probably in his early 40s. But his skin had a grayish pallor that immediately alarmed her trained eye. "Sir, can you hear me?" Olivia knelt beside him, her hands already checking his pulse. It was weak and irregular. His breathing was shallow, labored. She noticed his lips had a slight blue tinge. Not good. The man's eyes fluttered open. They were a deep brown, currently clouded with pain and confusion. He tried to speak, but only managed a weak whisper. "Help." Olivia's training kicked in instantly. She assessed his symptoms with practiced efficiency. Irregular heartbeat, difficulty breathing, cold and clammy skin, disorientation. Her mind raced through possibilities. Heart attack? Stroke? Something else? What happened? "Were you in an accident?" she asked urgently while opening her medical bag. "Poisoned." He managed to gasp. "Coffee? Someone poisoned my coffee?" Olivia's blood went cold. Poisoning cases were rare and extremely dangerous. She needed to know what substance to counteract. "What kind of poison?" "Do you know?" "Don't know." His hand weakly gestured toward his jacket pocket. "Phone, call Dr. Bennett, he knows." But as Olivia reached for his phone, the man suddenly convulsed. His eyes rolled back and his body went rigid. He was going into cardiac arrest. There was no time to wait for an ambulance or Dr. Bennett. Olivia had perhaps 2 minutes to save his life, with the limited supplies in her emergency bag. She made a split-second decision based on his symptoms. The grayish skin tone, the specific way his breathing had deteriorated, the timeline he'd indicated. It matched a case study she'd read about a specific type of plant-based poison. Olivia grabbed the atropine from her bag, a medication used for certain types of poisoning. It was a gamble. If she was wrong, it could make things worse. But if she was right, it might save his life. Her hands were steady as she administered the injection. Her years of experience overriding her fear, for several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. The man's lips remained blue, his breathing still shallow. Olivia began chest compressions, counting steadily, pushing past her exhaustion. Her arms burned with effort as she worked to keep blood flowing to his vital organs. Then, miraculously, he gasped. A deep, shuddering breath that filled his lungs. Color began returning to his face. His eyes opened again, more focused this time. Olivia continued monitoring his vital signs. Relief flooding through her, even as she maintained her professional composure. "You're going to be okay," she said firmly. "But we need to get you inside for proper treatment." "Can you tell me your name?" "Christopher," he managed, his voice stronger now. "Christopher Ashton." Olivia's heart skipped. She knew that name. Everyone in the hospital knew that name. Christopher Ashton was the founder of Ashton Technologies, one of the youngest billionaires in the country, and the single largest donor to Memorial Heights Hospital. The new children's wing, where Emma had received treatment for her asthma, was named after him, Mr. Ashton. "I'm going to call for a stretcher team. Don't try to move." She reached for her radio, but his hand caught her wrist with surprising strength. "Wait," he said, his brown eyes locking onto hers with startling intensity. "You saved my life. How did you know what to do?" "I recognize the symptoms," Olivia explained. "I read about a similar case in a medical journal. Plant-based alkaloid poisoning. But we need to confirm and continue treatment." Before Christopher could respond, the sound of rapid footsteps echoed through the garage. A woman in a designer dress and heels appeared. Her expression a mixture of concern and something else Olivia couldn't quite identify. The woman was beautiful in that polished, expensive way that spoke of personal trainers and high-end salons. "Christopher." The woman rushed forward, barely glancing at Olivia. "Oh my God, what happened?" "I got your emergency alert on my phone, Rachel." Christopher's voice held an odd note. "I was poisoned. This nurse saved my life." Rachel's gaze finally settled on Olivia, and something cold flickered in her blue eyes before she arranged her face into an expression of gratitude. "How fortunate you were here." She said the words, but her tone suggested she found it anything but fortunate. Olivia stood slowly, professional distance reasserting itself. "I need to get Mr. Ashton inside for comprehensive treatment. The initial crisis is over, but he needs observation and possibly additional antidotes." "Of course," Rachel said smoothly. "I'm his personal assistant. I'll handle everything from here." She pulled out her phone with manicured fingers, already dialing. "I'll call his private physician." But as Rachel turned away to make her call, Olivia noticed something that made her stomach tighten with unease. On Rachel's wrist was a small stain, dark against her pale skin. It looked like coffee. 3 days had passed since the parking garage incident. Olivia couldn't shake the image of that coffee stain on Rachel's wrist. She had mentioned it in her report to hospital security, but they assured her it was probably nothing. Christopher Ashton had been treated and released. Case closed, except it wasn't closed. Not for Olivia. She was finishing her morning shift when a young man in a tailored suit approached the nurse's station. He introduced himself as James, Mr. Ashton's driver, and handed her a sealed envelope with her name written in elegant script. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive cream-colored paper. The handwriting was strong and clear, definitely masculine. "Dear Olivia, I understand you value your privacy and professionalism, but I cannot let your heroism go unacknowledged. Please meet me at the address below at 2 p.m. today. I promise it will be worth your time. Respectfully, Christopher Ashton." Olivia stared at the address. It was in the wealthiest district of the city, where houses started at several $1,000,000. Her practical side told her to politely decline. Getting involved with a billionaire patient was asking for trouble, but something deeper, perhaps curiosity or the memory of his grateful eyes, made her reconsider. She called her mother to ask if Emma could stay an extra hour after school. Then she changed out of her scrubs into the nicest outfit she owned, simple navy dress and modest heels, and took the bus across town. The mansion was breathtaking. White columns, manicured gardens, and a fountain that probably cost more than Olivia's yearly salary. James greeted her at the door and led her through marble hallways decorated with modern art. She felt completely out of place. Like a sparrow that had wandered into a palace, Christopher was waiting in a sunlit study, looking much healthier than their last encounter. He stood when she entered, his smile warm and genuine. He wore casual clothes, jeans, and a simple sweater. This must seem strange. She remained near the doorway, maintaining professional distance. "Mr. Ashton, you really didn't need to do this? I was just doing my job. Please call me Christopher. And your job was to respond to emergencies in the hospital. You went above and beyond." He gestured to a comfortable chair. "Will you sit? I promise I'm not as intimidating as my net worth suggests." Despite herself, Olivia smiled and sat down. Christopher settled into the chair across from her, and for a moment they simply looked at each other. There was something genuine in his expression, loneliness that wealth couldn't hide. "I did some research," Christopher said quietly. "I hope you don't mind. I wanted to know more about the woman who saved my life. You're a single mother. Your daughter Emma is 7. You work night shifts so you can be there for her during the day. You've been at Memorial Heights for 4 years. And your supervisor says you're the best nurse they have." Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. That was private information, but she supposed billionaires had ways of finding things out. "I don't know what you want me to say." "I want to help." Christopher leaned forward, his brown eyes intense. "I know Emma has asthma. I know the treatments are expensive. Let me cover her medical expenses. All of them. Forever." Olivia's heart pounded. The offer was tempting beyond words. Emma's inhaler costs alone were crushing, but accepting charity from a wealthy man felt wrong, like selling her independence. "I can't accept that. It's too much." "Then let me put it differently." Christopher's voice softened. "You saved my life. In my world, that creates a debt that can never truly be repaid. But I'd like to try. Not as charity, but as gratitude. Please, let me do this." Olivia's resistance crumbled under the weight of her daughter's needs. She thought about Emma's upcoming specialist appointment, the one she'd been putting off because of the cost. Maybe pride was a luxury she couldn't afford. "Okay," she whispered, "but only for Emma's medical needs. Nothing more." Christopher's smile could have lit the room. "Deal. Now, would you like some tea? I make a terrible cup of coffee, but my tea is acceptable." Over the next 2 weeks, something unexpected happened. Christopher invited Olivia to lunch, ostensibly to discuss Emma's treatment plan. Then he invited her to dinner to show her the charity work his foundation did. Each meeting felt less like obligation and more like genuine connection. They talked about everything from childhood dreams to favorite books. Christopher shared stories about building his company from nothing, working 20-hour days in a cramped apartment. Olivia told him about the night Emma was born, how terrified and alone she'd felt, but how that tiny baby had given her life purpose. Christopher was nothing like Olivia had expected. Yes, he was wealthy and successful, but he was also kind, thoughtful, and surprisingly humble. He listened when she spoke, really listened, as if her words mattered more than any business deal. And Olivia found herself opening up in ways she hadn't since before Emma was born. But as their connection deepened, Olivia noticed something disturbing. Christopher seemed tired at their meetings, more so than normal exhaustion would explain. His hands occasionally trembled when he lifted his cup. Once, she caught him wincing as if in pain. "Are you feeling all right?" she asked during one of their coffee meetings. "You seem unwell." Christopher waved it off. "Just stress. Running a tech company means constant pressure." But Olivia's nursing instincts were screaming. This wasn't stress. This was something else. When Christopher excused himself to take a phone call, she noticed his medication bottle sitting on the table. She shouldn't have looked. It was a violation of privacy. But something compelled her. The label said the pills were for blood pressure management, prescribed by his personal physician, Dr. Bennett. But when Olivia carefully opened the bottle and examined one of the pills, her blood ran cold. The marking on the tablet didn't match standard blood pressure medication. She recognized it from her pharmaceutical training. This was something entirely different, Something that could cause the symptoms Christopher was displaying if taken regularly. Someone was poisoning him. Again, but this time it was slow. Calculated and hidden in plain sight. Olivia's mind raced back to that night in the parking garage. The coffee stain on Rachel's wrist. Rachel, who had seemed more annoyed than relieved that Christopher survived. Rachel, who had access to everything in Christopher's life, including his medication, when Christopher returned. Olivia kept her expression neutral, but inside her heart was hammering. She needed proof before making accusations that could ruin lives. But she also needed to protect him. "Christopher," she said carefully, "have you been taking your blood pressure medication regularly?" "Every day, like clockwork," Rachel reminds me. "Why?" "Nothing," Olivia forced a smile. "Just wondering. I'm a nurse, remember? We worry about these things." But that night, Olivia couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to Emma's soft breathing from the next room and made a decision. She would investigate Rachel. She would find proof, and she would save Christopher's life again, even if it meant risking her own safety. What Olivia didn't know was that Rachel had already noticed their growing closeness. And Rachel had plans of her own, plans that had been 7 years in the making, plans that involved a death that wasn't really a death, and a love that had turned into something dark and twisted. The next morning, Olivia received a text from an unknown number. "Stop seeing Christopher Ashton, or your daughter will pay the price. This is your only warning." Olivia's hands shook as she stared at the threatening text message. Her first instinct was to call the police, but fear paralyzed her. What if involving authorities put Emma in more danger? What if Rachel had someone watching them right now? She immediately called her mother, trying to keep her voice steady. "Mom, I need you to keep Emma home from school today. Tell the school she's sick. Don't let her out of your sight." Her mother's concerned voice came through the phone. "Olivia, what's wrong? You sound terrified. Just please, Mom, trust me." "I'll explain everything later." After hanging up, Olivia made another decision. She called Christopher, her voice urgent when he answered. "We need to talk. Right now. It's about your medication." 20 minutes later, he sat in a quiet corner of a small cafe far from Christopher's usual haunts. Olivia placed the pill she'd taken from his bottle on the table between them. "This isn't blood pressure medication," she said quietly. "It's a compound that mimics heart medication, but actually causes gradual organ damage. Whoever is giving you these is slowly killing you." Christopher's face went pale. "That's impossible. Dr. Bennett prescribed these. Rachel picks them up from the pharmacy herself." Olivia leaned forward, her eyes intense. "Think about it, Christopher. The parking garage poisoning happened right after you announced you were updating your will. You've been getting progressively sicker since then, and Rachel was the first person to arrive that night. She had a coffee stain on her wrist." Christopher sat back, his mind clearly racing through memories, connecting dots he'd been too trusting to see before. "Rachel has been with me for 8 years. She's loyal, dedicated." "Is she?" Olivia pulled out her phone and showed him the threatening text. "I got this morning after our dinner last night. Someone is watching us. Someone who wants me away from you." The color drained further from Christopher's face. He reached for Olivia's hand across the table, his grip tight with fear. "Emma, we need to make sure she's safe. She's with my mother. But Christopher, there's something else. I did some research last night. Rachel's background doesn't add up. Her employment history before joining you is almost non-existent. It's like she appeared out of nowhere 8 years ago." Before Christopher could respond, his phone buzzed. It was a video call from Rachel. He looked at Olivia, who nodded. "Answer it. We need to know what we're dealing with." Christopher accepted the call, and Rachel's face appeared on the screen. But she wasn't in her usual office. She was somewhere else, somewhere that made Olivia's blood turn to ice. Behind Rachel, tied to a chair and crying silently, was Emma. "Hello, Christopher." Rachel's voice was cold, completely different from her usual professional tone. "I see you've been spending time with your little nurse friend." That was a mistake. Olivia lunged for the phone, her voice breaking. "Let my daughter go. Please, she's just a child." Rachel's smile was cruel. Oh, I will. As soon as Olivia agrees to disappear from Christopher's life forever. You see, Christopher and I have unfinished business. Business that doesn't involve interfering nurses. Rachel, what are you doing? Christopher's voice was sharp with authority. Let the child go. This is between us. Is it? Rachel's laugh was bitter. You don't even remember me, do you, Christopher? Of course you don't. Why would the great Christopher Ashton remember the woman he married in college? The woman he discarded when she became inconvenient to his rising career? Olivia watched Christopher's face transform from confusion to shock. Victoria, but you died. The car accident 7 years ago. I survived, Rachel hissed. Burned, scarred, broken. I spent 2 years in hospitals, rebuilding my face, my life, and I planned. I became Rachel, your perfect assistant, waiting for the right moment to take everything you took from me. Christopher's voice was thick with emotion. Victoria, if you survived, why didn't you come to me? I mourned you. I never stopped loving you, love. Rachel's eyes blazed with fury. You divorced me when I got pregnant because a wife and child would hurt your company's image. You paid me off and made me sign papers saying I'd never contact you again. When I refused the abortion you demanded, you cut me off completely. Our baby died because I couldn't afford proper prenatal care. So I decided if I couldn't have you or our child, you wouldn't have anything either. Especially not some nobody nurse and her daughter playing happy family. Olivia's mind was reeling. But her nurse training kicked in. She noticed details in the video background. The distinctive wallpaper, the window view. She knew where they were. Rachel had taken Emma to Christopher's estate, to the guest house on the property. She quickly typed a message to Christopher. I know where they are. Call police. I'm going. Christopher saw the message and grabbed her arm, shaking his head desperately. But Olivia was already standing. She was a mother, and nothing would stop her from saving her daughter. Listen to me, Rachel, Olivia said firmly into the phone. You want Christopher to suffer? Then let me make you a deal. I'll come to you alone. You can have your revenge on me instead of an innocent child. That's more satisfying, isn't it? Rachel's eyes narrowed with interest. You have 30 minutes. Come alone, or the girl dies. The call ended. Christopher grabbed Olivia's shoulders. You can't do this. She's unstable and dangerous. She's my daughter, Olivia said simply, and I'm not going unprepared. I need you to trust me and call Detective Morrison at the precinct. Tell him everything. But give me a 20-minute head start. The drive to Christopher's estate was the longest of Olivia's life. Her hands gripped the steering wheel as she ran through her plan. In her purse was a syringe filled with a powerful sedative from the hospital. She'd also grabbed pepper spray and her phone set to record audio. The guest house was quiet when she arrived. Olivia entered slowly, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. Emma was still tied to the chair, tears streaming down her face. Rachel stood beside her with a knife. Mommy. Emma's cry broke Olivia's heart. I'm here, baby. Everything's going to be okay. Olivia kept her voice calm, her eyes locked on Rachel. Let her go now. I came alone like you asked. Rachel studied her for a long moment. You really love him, don't you? The great Christopher Ashton. You think you can have the fairy tale I was denied? I think you're in pain, Olivia said gently, taking a small step forward. I think you lost everything and you want someone to pay. But hurting my daughter won't bring your baby back. It won't heal what was done to you. Something flickered in Rachel's eyes. Grief, perhaps, or recognition of truth. Her grip on the knife loosened slightly. Christopher was wrong to abandon you, Olivia continued. What he did was cruel. But Emma is innocent. I'm innocent. We're not your enemies. Then who is? Rachel's voice cracked, years of pain spilling out. Who pays for what was taken from me? Christopher does, by losing his fortune in court. By facing what he did, but not like this. Not by becoming the monster he made you feel like. In that moment of hesitation, Olivia moved. She grabbed the pepper spray and discharged it directly into Rachel's face. Rachel screamed and dropped the knife. Olivia kicked it away and rushed to Emma, frantically untying the ropes. The door burst open. Police officers swarmed in, with Christopher right behind them. He ran to Olivia and Emma, wrapping them both in his arms as Rachel was handcuffed, still screaming threats through her tears. Later, at the police station, the full story emerged. Rachel had indeed survived the accident, and her grief and rage had consumed her. She'd spent years planning her revenge, slowly poisoning Christopher while positioning herself to inherit everything when he died. The parking garage poisoning had been a test run that went wrong when Olivia intervened. 6 months later, on a beautiful spring morning, Olivia stood in a simple white dress in the garden of a small chapel. Emma, wearing a flower crown, bounced excitedly beside her. Christopher waited at the altar, his eyes shining with love and gratitude. The ceremony was small, just family and close friends. As Christopher slipped the ring onto Olivia's finger, he whispered, "You saved my life twice. Once in that garage, and once when you showed me what real love looks like." Olivia smiled through happy tears. "And you saved mine by showing me I deserve to be loved." That afternoon, Christopher announced the creation of the Emma Carter Foundation, dedicated to providing medical care and financial support for single parents struggling to provide for their children. The first recipient was a young mother whose story reminded him remarkably of Olivia's journey. As the sun set on their wedding day, Olivia watched Emma playing with other children, laughing without fear. Christopher's arm was warm around her shoulders. She thought about the terrifying night in the parking garage that had changed everything. How a single moment of courage had led to this beautiful new beginning. Sometimes the darkest moments lead to the brightest futures. Sometimes saving someone else's life means saving your own. And sometimes love finds you in the most unexpected places when you're brave enough to take the risk.